Welcome back. World Read Aloud Day celebrates the joy of reading and sharing stories that build connections within communities. The creator of World Read Aloud Day and the founder of several learning platforms and literacy campaigns, Pam Allyn, joins me to discuss how this day highlights the importance of reading and promotes global literacy. Pam, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, can you just tell us a little bit about how World Read Aloud came to be?
Well, it's a great story because the idea came from a child. I was reading aloud in a classroom in New York City, and the children were gathered around and they loved the read aloud so much. And afterwards, a child said to me, "Mrs. Allyn, I wish we could do that every single day." And so I said to him, "Well, we should do that every single day. Why aren't we doing that every day?" And he said, "Well, my teacher says there's a lot of tests that we need to take." So I said to him, "Do you know that the read aloud actually helps to advance students' skills? That children who are read aloud to every day perform up to a year, if not more, better in school than children who are not read aloud to." And he said to me, he was only 7, he said, "You know, we need more attention for this." He said, "When it's my birthday, people pay a lot of attention to me." He said, "We should have a big party for the read aloud, and then nobody will forget how important it is." And I thought, what a great idea. So I went home, I told my team, I said, "A child today just had the world's best idea. Let's see if we can make a big party." So that day was the first day. We said, let's make a date. We picked a date. And from then on, it's been the first Wednesday of every February. Teachers asked us, make a date when nobody in the world is on vacation from school. So February it is. So that's how it is. And I've always thought to myself, I hope somewhere, someplace, that little guy 14 years ago was the one who had that idea, is listening. He's fully grown now. I hope he knows what an impact he had.
That's amazing, and I love to hear that story. It shows that kids want to read and they kind of have that passion for reading. Can you also explain, why reading aloud with young children is so important? And you mentioned that they get skills. What are some of those skills?
Reading aloud to a child is actually a lot more important than people realize because they see it as being something so relaxing. It's obviously fun. Children love to hear the same books over and over again, so that kind of drives us crazy sometimes, but still amazing. But actually, in fact, it's a very educational thing to do for a child. One reason is because you're really marinating a child in vocabulary, in sentences, in the beauty of language. You're giving them opportunity to be immersed in literature they might not yet be able to read on their own. And then the second thing that's really important for young children, but really for everybody, but especially for young children, is for them to see us reading. Because oftentimes you can't see when someone's reading. We're looking at our phones, or it looks like we're turning pages, but a child doesn't know what we're doing. So the read aloud is a manifestation of literacy. It's showing a child what we're doing. And then finally, something about the read aloud is there's a book, there's you, there's me, and there's something that happens between us that is magic. And for a child to feel that, okay, reading can feel great to me, and it's something I might want to do for the rest of my life, that's a huge message we can pass to children.
I also want to add that I think reading aloud is also important for any age. I even from myself, I noticed that once I started getting into this work, I was like, I definitely need, it just helps you with speaking,
Yes.
And everything, so I think it's so important, and it is important that we start much younger. I wish that this was something that was around when I was a child, because I think I definitely would have been.
You would have loved it.
I would have loved it. So it's so nice to hear that. Now, as an educator and a literacy advocate, what are some of the challenges you observed in children who might struggle with reading?
There are a lot of challenges, and yet I am a very driven person when it comes to literacy. I believe we can do a lot better and in terms of the outcomes that we have. But I do think that the challenge is what gets in the way. One is distraction, that children are moving in a lot of directions. Schools are very busy. There's a lot going on, child after school and then in the evening. There's so much happening. And I think for us adults to prioritize reading and say, we know it's busy, but we're always going to do this at every point of the day. Distraction is a hard one, and especially with all the technology. So for us too, to settle ourselves a little bit as parents, cousins, friends of children, teachers, to take every day to say, am I sitting down beside a child to show that? And then the second challenge is really, we've had some years that have gone where we haven't really fully done all that we need to do in schools for literacy. And I'm really thrilled that the chancellor's, I think, doing a great job. He has a big campaign for reading in New York City. New York City always leads the way in the nation. I think the appreciation of how a child learns phonetically, phonemically, and also by building comprehension. These are all things that children need to do that oftentimes we kind of miss certain pieces of those things. So I think we're getting on track, and I think we're moving in the right direction. The challenges are real, but my goal is 100% literacy.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion on the science of reading in school districts within New York State. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that is?
Yes, so the science of reading is really, researchers have really investigated the cognitive aspects of reading. Reading is so mysterious and miraculous. You kind of, as an adult, you don't remember, how did I learn to read? But there is a science to it. And so one of the aspects of the science of reading is the phonemic, phonics aspect of it, which is the connections that sounds and letters make. But there's a lot of other aspects to the science of reading, including how we make meaning when we bring text into our minds, and how smoothly we read on the page. That's called fluency. And so there's different parts of the scientific aspect of reading that have been, in some ways, teachers just do need more support. They need more training, they need more support, and so do parents. And that's part of my work with Dewey, is that I want to create that homeschool connection so that parents and teachers alike can know what the science of reading is, and know that they too can embrace it and use those principles at home, not only at school, but at home with their children.
Now, what is the SOR model, and how does Reading Aloud support that?
So SOR is a shorthand for science of reading, but no, please, most people don't know. And it's actually, what's great about it is it's giving us a structure for how we can look at what it means to become a reader. So for example, we do have to practice our phonics. We have to practice the sounds letters make in correspondence with the letters that we see on the page or screen. However, for example, the English language is a confounding language because it's not even a phonetic language. So we have to do more than that too. We have to teach children how to look at character development. We have to teach them how to learn to be critical readers and read something and then ask a question about it. So SOR is really saying, make sure we give children all of those things, not just some or others, but all. And that the English language, as children learn it in school, helps them to understand too that sometimes I'm stretching sounds, and sometimes I have to memorize that particular little word, like THE isn't really easy to just stretch the sounds on, but memorizing it will help, but stretching sounds helps. And then third, just learning to love text and being the kind of super reader who can say, even if something is hard, I'm going to use all these strategies of SOR to help myself get through them.
Now, I'm really curious to know, we talked about some of the challenges, and one of those challenges was technology. So are there any resources available for parents and teachers who want to help their children or their child build a solid reading habit and foundation, especially in the age of technology?
Yes. So, I mean, one thing is use the technology for a good purpose. So, for example, as simple as a FaceTime with a grandparent, do a read aloud that way. That's a good use of technology. Secondly is use the New York City Public Library. We have, I think it's the best library system in the world. I'm so proud to be a New York City resident so that I get to go to the library. It's a very welcoming place. I highly encourage parents, caregivers, and educators to make more use of it. Go take books out, talk to the librarians about what their favorite new books are. And then finally, come visit my website, deweycommunity.com, because we really have focused a lot of our energy on helping parents in short bursts to really understand how they can help their children at home as readers, making space for their children, create a cozy corner for reading to happen at home. You don't have to have a lot of room, and you don't even have to have a lot of books.
Now, as we mentioned, World Read Aloud Day is tomorrow, so how are you celebrating World Read Aloud Day?
Well, first of all, I'm going to be doing some read alouds with children across the country, luckily, and that's the benefit of technology. I get to be invited into classrooms virtually, so I'm going to get to do a lot of that tomorrow. And then also I'm hoping to visit a few classrooms here in New York City DOE, and that'll be really fun. This is where it all started. That little boy was from a New York City public school. He was the inventor, so we always have to touch back in. And then finally, I'm a grandmother, so I have a 2-year-old grandson, Gus, and he and I are definitely going to be reading aloud tomorrow with my mom, my husband, his parents, my other daughter, the whole extended family. We'll do that by, some of us by Zoom, and some of us in person, and we'll use it as a way for our family to be together.
That's amazing. I love to hear that, but you know, it's a day, but we want this to be every day, right? So what can parents do to ensure that they're kind of getting that reading aloud as part of their daily habits and, you know, part of the family routine?
I love that question because that was always my intention and always my dream after that little guy gave me that idea was World Read Aloud Day should be every day. And I think the main thing I can say to people is you don't have to have anything really except your own stories. If you're worried that you don't know which book to choose or what to do, tell a story from your own childhood. Make that your read aloud for the day, each and every day. And then secondly, the things that we can do each day are to create rituals and routines around the read aloud that aren't just about a bedtime story. Because sometimes when we're working parents or grandparents, we're tired by the end of the day. So make the read aloud routine before breakfast or while you're preparing a dinner. Have your child read aloud to you at the dinner table. And also don't be afraid to be excited when your child wants to revisit books they've already read. That's something parents often ask me. They say, is that okay? And I say, yes, they can read that book again and again. That's still going to be very good for their brain development.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. It really brought back a lot of like nice memories for me because I grew up in the library and reading was like a huge part of like what my family did. And I'm so glad to see that World Read Aloud Day has grown, you know, just from one child. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing that story.
Thanks for having me.
To stay in touch with all the work that Pam does, please go to her website at www.pamallyn.com. Stay tuned, we have more open for you right after this.